Welcome to Season 2 of Under the Sisterhood. Over the 31 days of March, we are celebrating 31 Women's March of Voices during Women's History Month. We will have intimate conversations that will uncover each woman's superpower and find out how they use these superpowers to help other women. That's 31 days honoring 31 women and their superpowers. This is a podcast to celebrate women and all that they do in our world. I'm Elizabeth Elfenbein. Let's get under the hood. Today, we're celebrating Zerline Goodman and Brice and Zaya Rothenberg, mother, daughters, sisters, friends, and women's advocates. Zerline has been my dear, steadfast friend for over 30 years, and I watched her beautiful daughters grow into the powerful women that they are today. Zerline is an attorney in Brooklyn where she's helped thousands of clients over the last 20 years buy and sell real estate. She recently merged her practice to form Dubno Goodman PLLC. Brice is a copywriter and creative, currently freelancing for health and wellness brands. Zaya Marz is a singer-songwriter with an album coming out this year on all platforms. She's currently attending Boston University, where she's majoring in English. I am so honored to be celebrating these incredible women, my dear friends, during Women's History Month. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So happy to have you guys. So happy. So why don't we get going? Are we good?
Good.
So, here we are. It's Women's History Month, and I think this month is such an important month. We don't think about it, but when you take the time and you reflect and you recognize where we were, where we've come from, where we're going as women, it's really important to speak up and have voice and agency around it. So this, this is an interesting format with the three beautiful women and the sisterhood. I want to start with Zerline and ask you if you could share your story, and not just being a woman, but your story.
It's a long story, 60 years of story. I will give you the Reader's Digest abridged version. I think I'll start with having graduated from law school. At that point, I came to New York and played on the Women's Professional Squash Tour for a year and a half, and then hung up a shingle. During that period of time when I was playing a lot of squash, I met my soon-to-be husband, Michael Rothenberg. We met and were engaged within 6 months, married within a year. And at that point, I hung up a shingle and started a solo practice as an attorney here first in Manhattan and then here in Brooklyn. Within 2 years, Brice was born, and then a year and a half later, Garen was born, and then a few years after that, Zaya was born. My practice became exclusively residential real estate, and I've been doing that since 92. I have a busy real estate practice that I have just merged with another attorney here in Brooklyn to form Dubno Goodman, and I continue to work long hours, and I enjoy my work very much. My proudest accomplishment is my 3 unbelievable children, 2 of whom are here. And we lost Michael almost 11 years ago. And the focus of my life since then has been to make sure that my kids thrive and prosper, and they are a source of endless joy and pride. And you're about to see why.
Well, I can just say, having witnessed all of this, I think I met Zerline actually when she was in law school, or right after she graduated and moved to Brooklyn, and she actually coached me in squash. So that's how we began and we met. And so I've been sort of on this journey with her and have seen Brice, Garen, and Zaya actually in her belly. So it's been pretty remarkable. And I think the one thing that you kind of skipped, and I know that your family is and your children are your source of pride and joy, and they're actually a source of pride and joy for me too, because I've been part of their lives for so long. But I think one of the things that you didn't really talk about is your amazing work and service on behalf of all these boards and all the things you do within the college you attended. You give back into communities in so many different ways. I never understood how you had the capacity. If you could share a little bit about that, because I know you sit on boards today. I know you're more active in certain types of communities, but you've done so much. And I think that that should be acknowledged, Zerline.
Well, squash has been a huge part of my life and my success, and was the reason that I met Michael. So I always felt that I wanted to give back to the squash community in whatever way I could. So I've been the president of the Skillman Associates, which is the Yale alumni group that is responsible for raising all of the funds for Yale squash. I've been the president of that board for 10 years. I'm going to step off shortly. I began serving on the College Squash Association board 5 years ago at its inception. So I was one of the founding board members, and it's time for me to roll off that board as well. And I've been the head of the Rules and Regulations Committee on that board, and I created the schematic for punishments when players misbehave on the court. And I'm proud of that, because it's an important part of the game to make sure that we carry on the behavior that we expect from college players as role models. And so that's been a very time-consuming, but very I've been very pleased with the results, and it's been very gratifying.
Actually, to that point, I'm glad you brought up the word role model, because I think that what I would say about Zerline Goodman is she's been a role model. She is a role model for all women. She's been a huge role model for me. She carries herself with such grace. And, interestingly, I mean, it's not that you lost that much, so you knew what it felt like to lose, but you were also a very gracious winner when we were in tournaments and stuff. And that's something, as I was talking and I mentioned that I interviewed my daughter, Olivia, I think the notion of being a good winner and a good loser, being gracious in all states of life, because life throws you so many things, as we know, and it's really about how we show up and deal with them. And you do it with such integrity and so much grace. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Zerline, I think you're pretty amazing. So I'm looking at you, Brice. It's so funny to be in this wonderful format with the four of us. Why don't you share your story?
Drum roll, please. Just kidding. Hi, I'm so excited to be chatting. I think it is tricky to know where to start your story. I guess I'll start sort of in college, where I left, public school on the Upper West Side to go to a really preppy Connecticut school, Trinity College, and decided that maybe I was going to play squash. As my mom talked about, it was a really big part of our family. Kind of if you were in our family, you were a squash player, whether you liked it or not. And I think I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to play. And to my surprise, I was welcomed with warm, arms onto the team, and had the least kind of experience, hadn't really competed, and joined one of the, top nationally ranked teams in the country. So that was really incredible. And, I was around and surrounded by a lot of women who were from all over the world. It was a really incredible experience. I met people that I never would have met. I made, my best friends within the first 2 years, who I actually just had here at my home in Connecticut this weekend, the four of them, who have been, and will continue to be lifelong friends. I, did a cappella in college, which was an incredible experience. I performed at the White House. I performed at Carnegie Hall. It was truly a testament to just hard work and practice, and just really enjoyed being able to do that in addition to squash. But I think, unlike squash, I think I had always been comfortable singing and I had never really been comfortable playing squash. So I was in my comfort zone and out of my comfort zone pretty consistently for 4 years. But both ended up being really rewarding, and being voted as captain of the squash team my senior year was incredible, especially since I knew that I was not the strongest player. So, it was speaking to my kind of ability to connect people, to really sort of be a mediator, to connect friendships, and to try to stay objective and calm in any sort of situation. A lot can happen on the squash court. And so that was a really great opportunity to just sort of test those skills as well. And then I graduated from college and moved back to Brooklyn. And I was fortunate enough to have a mentor that suggested an industry to me that I had never heard of. Elizabeth, that mentor was you. And it suggested, there's this internship that, you might be interested in looking at. And you were always very clear with me, this is, your life and your opportunity and your job. And I can make an introduction, but it's up to you. And was always so grateful for that. And just sort of this opportunity of like, this is on you. You have to impress the people. You have to do the work. You have to put in the time. But here's someone that you can meet. And I'm just really grateful for that mentality for so many reasons, as you know. And I was fortunate enough to meet with these people at the block and had a really, really great experience working there for a few years. I actually met my husband there, which is crazy to say, my husband. And that was just sort of, serendipitous. And I think learned how to be a copywriter, learned how to be a creative conceptor, learned how passionate I was about health and wellness as a creative. And sort of navigating the field, navigating sort of how to have tough work conversations, how to advocate for yourself, how to push the work, how to focus on the work, all things that I've learned from you. And, then kind of continue to sort of go to other jobs, including some startups, including other agencies. And along the way, always having you, Elizabeth, as someone that would give me guidance, that would listen to me and hear me, but also say, get it together, and always be honest with me when I needed someone to be honest. And I think I'm just always so grateful for just the mantra that you have said to me that I repeat to myself frequently, which is focus on the work. I think it can be really hard in a lot of different industries and jobs to get sucked up and sucked into the things that are not important, into politics, into things that are just not about focusing on creativity and making the work better and pushing yourself. And that is a mantra that, again, I just repeat, focus on the work. And I think it really is for a lot of aspects, right? Like it's, like you said to me before, it's about being present. It's about, seeing what's in front of you and not getting too far ahead of yourself, which is something I've definitely struggled with. So yeah, now I fast forward a little bit. I live in Connecticut. I have a house here and a dog. Two things I never thought that I would have, in addition to a husband. So I'm very grateful. And I think just having constant support, as you mentioned, just from family and sisters and friendship and mentorship is invaluable. And I just think it's, I'm grateful every day.
That's so beautiful. And you know what the thing is, Brice? I want to go back a little to your time as captain of your team. And so
Yeah.
you said that, you weren't the best player, but you were really good at connecting people. And I actually want to add something to that because I think it's really important. It wasn't you. Yes, you were a fantastic connector of people, but you were a tremendous leader. It's just who you are. It's in your DNA. When you were an intern, your nature with the 10 other interns was to take control of the group and make sure you guys delivered and kept on task. And I also want to talk a little bit about the do the work concept. Because, when we talk about it a lot in the context of, and Zaya, I think this is really good for you to hear. Your mother, of course, does the work, but I think as it relates to anything you're doing professionally and even personally, if you do the work, if you if you take care of yourself, if you do the self-care, you're going to feel better. You're going to show up better. If you go and you don't participate in all the extraneous stuff that comes with the job, and you're a creative. So when all that stuff comes into your brain, you can't possibly be your best self and be the most creative self, because your brain is being sucked into like a vortex of things that won't allow you to be your best self. So when you think about doing the work, I think doing the work is about all aspects of life. And I was just having this conversation with Olivia, and I think this is good, Zaya, for you to hear as well, and this wasn't specific to Olivia, but as I've said to Brice, don't worry about your titles. Don't worry about, you focus on the process, you focus on your music, you focus on your writing. If you decide tomorrow that you're going to do advertising part-time and you want to be a screenwriter, you do all the things and stay focused on the process of the creation. And that, I promise you, because you are so talented, you will be successful. And in terms of, your comments, you guys, and I think a lot of this, I have to say, I think is because you've grown up with this. You guys have been groomed with this sort of sisterhood. You not only have the sisterhood within your immediate nuclear family, but within your extended family. So, so talk a little bit, Brice, before we move on to Zaya, about your feelings about sisterhood, the many aspects of it for you and how it served you.
Yeah, so like you said, I mean, we have such an incredible family. I think just sort of the guidance and leadership that you talked about, comes from my mom, comes from my oma, just this ability to, one foot in front of the other, to be, kind and patient and gracious, and sort of always, making people feel seen and heard and loved. You talked about that earlier. I think, that doesn't come from nowhere, that comes from having a supportive family and a network of women that, are there through and for anything. And I think, as my mom can attest to many, 1 or 2 a.m. phone calls, she's quite literally always there, and always on the receiving end of those calls. So I think it's something that was taught definitely by our family, not just like you said in our nuclear family, but just through my oma, through my aunts, even through my uncles, through my cousins. I think it's just, having a network is something that has been, I think, taught to us from a very young age, and being really close with your people. But I think that, like you said, has extended to me. I have my family, my chosen family of, my college best friends, like I said, who were here this past weekend, who I love dearly, who are my sisters, who I would do anything for. It's funny, all 3 of them are the youngest in their family and have 2 older brothers. So I think this idea of being a sister to someone who didn't have any sisters is something that I didn't even realize I had done, but just to show how important that sisterhood is, to have, someone who's there for you through everything, who can share experiences, who can offer guidance and support, and just, be like a phone call away. Like, I'm definitely, I think, as taught by my mom, and Zaya can attest to as well, who has, called me at hours of the evening as well, to just be one phone call away, and just, to have that support is everything.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's something I have admired with your family, of course, having knowing your oma, your grandmother, and knowing, of course, one of your aunts was one of my squash buddies over the years, and just her children. I mean, that's just a wonderful thing. I think the other thing that's interesting about your family is the sisterhood is also intergenerational. I don't feel like even though I might be your mentor, I feel like we can have a conversation that puts us on an equal playing field, having a conversation as women. And I think that that's something that I hope I aspire to be like that, but I also acknowledge that that's something that you guys do very, 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 very naturally, which is really beautiful, by the way. So Zaya, with all of your LED lighting, Zaya is just amazing, and she's the third. She's the baby in the family, but a very powerful woman. Tell us your story, Zaya.
Okay. I think I'm gonna start on my gap year. I feel like that was when I really became a person. I would say so. Yeah, I graduated high school in 2020, and then I took a gap year, and it was the first time that I really just worked on my music for a year. And I wrote and recorded my first album. And that year was really special to me because I think I really got to know myself in a way that I didn't before. I think that having so much time to just like be alone and reflect um, on myself really allowed me to like do that work that we were talking about, like the kind of like self-care and like introspection and trying to figure out like who I am and what I want. Um, and I would say, yeah, that year was really rewarding for me because obviously I finished it with an album with like a piece of art that to me felt like a representation of who I am and like what I've been through.
Mm.
But I
Excuse
also
me, just a
think,
quick interjection. We
Mhm.
love that song, the 17 song, but we'll put all of that in your show notes. Oh my goodness, it was brilliant.
Deal.
Mm,
um, but yeah, I would say that year was really rewarding for me because I think I really figured out for the first time what I wanted, um, which was that I really wanted to use college as an opportunity to connect with people, not just musicians, but creatives. I think that something that's really important in this industry is collaboration. And I don't think a lot of people see connection as a strength. A lot of people fear it. Um, and I wanted to be around it, and I wanted to use my college years to have more opportunity to create a sisterhood and create a network of women and creatives to be around all the time. And so I transferred out of Bates to Boston University, where I knew I would be in a city and I knew I would be around a bunch of other schools with a bunch of other kids looking to do what I was doing, to make music and to make the most out of my college experience. And um, yeah, and that's what I did. And I just had my first semester there, and I love it. I
that's
definitely think it was the
awesome.
right decision.
That's
Um,
great news.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just feel like it was kind of the first time that I really made a decision for myself entirely. Like, um, it was hard because I made some really great friends at Bates, and like I did feel like I had a like sisterhood at Bates. Like I didn't really have those connections until college. Um, and I don't know, I think there were a lot of things I learned at Bates. Like I had proved to myself that I could be a good student. I made dean's lists. Like I had never um felt like so smart. And I think for me that was something else I learned is like you like it's okay to be smart. Like you should lead with that, you know? Like I think sometimes it's hard to feel pretty and smart. You have to like choose sometimes. And I felt like I
Mm,
had made that decision, like I want to be pretty. And I like didn't value that I could be smart. I could be both. And I think that's part of like the connection with women. I think that's part of what's so important is like lifting each other up and being like, you're beautiful for this reason, like not just externally, but internally, you have this beautiful thing
mhm.
about you. And like, I feel like that was really what I learned from my friends there. It was like, I felt really seen by them. And I think that's what's so important about like sisterhood and connecting with other women. It's like lifting each other up.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it all there, Zaya. But I do, I seriously, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I just want to give you an antidote to you feeling like you couldn't be both beautiful and smart. Obviously, I have three children, actually, two girls and a boy like Zerline, and my Olivia, and then Georgia. And Georgia was in season one podcast, and she always had to dumb herself down in high school and stuff. Because it was more important to be seen as someone pretty or whatever. And now she's recognized. It took her a while to say, hey, no, and she really owned her intelligence. And that's something that you never want to give that up, and you want to focus on the beauty within. And I think also one of the reasons three of you are so beautiful is also you're so beautiful on the inside. I don't think people, women, men, I don't think that they're good looking if they're not inside good looking. But I want to get back to your earliest part of your story, which was finding yourself and doing that self discovery and looking in and that reflection. That's amazing. You should be really proud to be on that discovery journey at such a young age, Zaya. And you will always, I'm looking at Brice, I'm looking at Zerline, we'll always be on that journey. We will always be finding out more about ourselves. Who would have thought that I would get to know myself at, my late 50s. I keep saying late 50s because I'm almost, where it's just okay. But it's wonderful that if you're doing that at 19 versus, it's not that it's not wonderful at my age, because at different stages you give yourself time and you look within. But I think in doing that and finding music and finding your voice, like literal and figurative voice, because you have this, she has an unbelievable voice, as does
Yeah.
Brice, but you deciding, it's kind of interesting. It's like you guys should form a band, but okay, just saying. I'm looking, you guys look so cute right now. But
I had a name for them, the
Okay,
Rockenberg.
the
The Rockenberg.
Rockenbergs. I love it. Oh. But no, you have to go your own path. It's your journey. It's your life. I don't mean that. I mean that lovingly, not like saying you should do that. But what I think was amazing is Brice has her voice in the creative field and what she's doing. You're both creatives, as is Garen, by the way. And then now you're pursuing your music, and it's something to give yourself voice, to be seen, to be heard, and to be acknowledged, to be on that stage, letting yourself out there, your lyrics, your creations, what's going on in your head, and sharing that with the world is just a beautiful thing. And it takes a lot of courage. Talk a little bit about that side of you. Like, how did you get so emboldened with your voice? You just had a good voice? Like, what made you, what stirred within you that got you to believe and do?
Well, for me, I think music was always like a way of expressing myself. Sometimes it was hard to like really talk about some of the stuff that I was feeling, like especially around like losing my dad at a young age. I think music really helped me as like a coping mechanism to deal with a lot of the things that I couldn't really say out loud. And sometimes I feel like it's just easier to communicate. Like it's, to me, like that is my chosen form of communication, because I can write and I can also, like make a melody out of a feeling, and sometimes that melody
Mm.
expresses the feeling away in a way that words can't. Um, so I think over time it was really just about like having enough confidence to share my work with other people, but at the end of the day, it was really about like connecting and like having other people relate to my songs and be like, oh, I've felt that feeling before, and I feel like this song can help me get through what I'm going through. So I think it was about kind of like putting my pride to the side and being like, people who are going to connect with this are going to connect with it. People who don't, they're not the right people to hear it, And I think just doing it for myself and doing it for, the people who are going to appreciate it and connect with it, like that's, at the end of the day, that was kind of what just drove me to keep going.
I think that's great. I love the fact that you're using it, as music as a coping mechanism, because then it was a coping mechanism. Now it's an art form. Do you know what I'm saying? You
Right,
used it
yeah.
for one reason very early in your life, and it took on its own sort of journey, if you will, with you. And it's funny, and just saying that, interestingly, my son Ian picked up a keyboard 2 weeks ago. So I don't know, he was on his way to being like an unbelievable pianist, gave it up, like unbelievable. And he has a good voice, but believe it or not, Zaya, you have inspired him. He sees your music and he's like, go Zaya. He's just so happy for you. And I'm like, honey, you can do it too. I'm out in LA shooting music videos of him. I just can't. But anyway, so my point in saying that and sharing that is that, as well as your voice being beautiful, your stories, your lyrics telling a story that connects with people, it also inspires people. It gives people courage to pursue their things when they see someone that they love and care about out there on the stage, and sort of like exposing yourself, which is just amazing. So keep up that tremendous work. So Zerline, we're coming back to you, and we're going to go on to the question around superpowers. So we have three amazing women here who have all kinds of superpowers. What would you say your top three superpowers are, Zerline?
Okay, don't tell anyone, but I can fly.
Okay, like a bird, like a plane, like.
No. Someone we were having a conversation at a dinner party night before last about if you could have a real superpower, what would it be? And that was my chosen superpower. But the ones that I actually have, I think I'm a really good sleeper, which is a superpower because it is critical to survival. I'm patient, and I have a calming influence when I'm in a room with other people, and that has been a reason for my success in my chosen field. I think that I have a calm presence.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. No offense, but I'm going to flip the order. I mean, not that sleep isn't a wonderful superpower, but it would be lower on the totem pole because it doesn't really describe like all of your tremendous attributes. But I do think your patience and your calming effect on people, you give them so much confidence because of the way you carry yourself. You put people at ease. And it's a very disarming quality. So it's an amazing superpower. Any others?
I'm a good athlete, and I am so thankful that in my 60th year, I can continue to do all the things I love to do. I love to box. I started swimming. I started playing golf, and all of those things are coming very easily and naturally, and that is not something to take for granted.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's great. Having the coordination, the hand-eye. Yeah, you were always, and also very strategic in your
and I
planning.
can
So it
still
is.
hit a squash ball.
That's awesome. So Brice, what would you say your superpowers are? This is so interesting, by the way, to do mother and daughters and sisters like this. It's so interesting to hear you guys together and sort of.
It's awesome. I think one of my superpowers is sort of this ability to get people to open up. Similarly to what you were just saying, I have a lot of people that just kind of like will tell me everything. And I'm always shocked at how trusting they are, and that they just sort of open up and tell me things. And I'm like, oh my goodness, wow, like, thank you for sharing that with me. And I know that they know immediately that they can trust me and that they can count on me, and that I am a trusted kind of source for them to be able to talk through or work through, whatever they feel like sharing with me. I think a nuance to that superpower that I'm trying to sort of work on is also just knowing when those people want me to listen and when they want me to share advice. I think that is, it's a double-edged sword, right? With great power comes great responsibility, like, trying to figure out how to know that that's a superpower of yours, but also know that you have to, to work on honing it and be the best version of yourself with it. I guess another one maybe would be, and I touched on this earlier, but just connecting people. Like, I think that was something my dad was really good at. And I pride myself on sort of sharing that superpower with him. Connecting people across different industries, across different parts of his life. I think you would love this person. I think this person would have a great career at this, company. Like, just being able to just connect people that have common interests or shared, personality traits, or would just love each other. I've introduced a lot of my friends. I've helped a lot of my friends get jobs, and I really pride myself on that. I think sharing that trait with him makes me feel really fulfilled and happy. And I guess, I don't know if I have any other ones. I'm trying to think if there's anything that comes to mind. Well, I really just, I think, enjoy being able to be like silly and goofy with people. I think that the ability to not take yourself too seriously and just laugh. And I think people know that, I love them if I make fun of them, right? Like, because it means, I know that we can laugh about this, and I'm sort of trusting you to make fun of me. I think Zaya can attest to that. And I know my mom can definitely attest to that. Lots of laughing and silliness and goofiness. And, I think it's just one of those things that makes life, you know, more fun to be able to, even when something hard happens, even when something serious happens, to be able to know with your family and your close friends and your sisters that there are some things that only you guys can laugh about, and maybe nobody else has to get it, but that there's this moment of, we're connected. We know we can, make a joke about something and just be able to laugh and get through and move forward. And I think that's special.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So first off, yeah, you have this way about you, actually like your mother, that people find you're very trustworthy. And that's because you don't get caught up in gossip and you don't share. You hold that sacred, safe space for people. So when you say you're a really good listener, you know what you're getting at. And I've been learning about this with all the work that George is doing, is that generous listening. When do you just take in and know that this is just, they just need to be heard and seen and acknowledged. They don't need advice. Actually, interestingly, your mom is that to me. You're just a generous, when we connect, Zerline is just a generous listener. She is, and she just sits back, and I feel like, which is good. There's like no advice, you should be doing this or that. And so that's a wonderful quality. I also want to make a comment to the superpower where you're very, you connect people. So when you listen, people feel heard and feel seen and heard. When you're connecting people, what's interesting about that quality that you share with your father, and of course I knew Michael, is that you see people for who they are, and you connect the opportunities to make situations better. Like, it's not you just doing a network thing. It's like you seeing, wow, there's this thing happening here. And this person has this wonderful quality because you see them. And so that's something, by the way, that our whole platform is about: seeing, hearing, and celebrating, yes, women. But if we did that as a society, where people felt like when you're there, you're really present, that would be a beautiful thing. So that's an amazing superpower. And of course, the gift of laughter to take the edge off of things. I wish I was better at laughing at myself. I think I'm getting a little better. And sometimes I'm funny, but like, that's a wonderful quality. So not, even though it makes things fun, it also takes the edge off some really challenging things. And it's another thing that connects people, because we all have these odd senses of humor. So those are some pretty cool superpowers, like really the first, like really important ones. So Zaya, we know that you have the gift of words, communication, music. What would you say your superpowers are?
Well, so I would say the first one would be like my voice. I feel like we kind of joke about where our voices came from. Like Brice and I can sing. Garen can also sing. He's very low key about it, but he can sing too. But not to throw you under the bus, Mom, but my mom can't sing.
I am
My
not
dad
left-handed.
tone deaf. So the mystery of our voices kind of also makes it a little bit magical. It's like, where did it come from? I don't know. But so I would say my voice and Brice's voice and Karen's voice. And then I would say my empathy kind of manifests in a different way than Brice's. I feel like instead of like being not that I'm not a good listener, but I would say that I am the one who like opens up first, and then people then feel comfortable to open up back, versus like people being gravitated towards her to open up. Like, I feel like I set the precedent, and I'm like, I'm gonna open up to you and be vulnerable, and then people are like, oh, it's okay, and then they're vulnerable back. And I think what comes with that is I have like an ability to make people feel good about themselves. Like my friends always joke that I'm like the best hype girl. So
That's
like
a
if
good
we're out
hype girl.
yeah, hype girl. Like if, somebody needs a shoulder to cry on, or somebody needs to be reminded how hot they are, I'm like the one to be like, hey, pick your head up. You're beautiful. Let's keep going. So I would say hype girl. And then I think the double-edged sword with that one is that it can be hard when you give a lot and then you feel like sometimes you're not receiving in the same way. And I think a lesson that I've been learning is, and this one's still really hard for me, like I'm still learning this one, but basically that people don't have the same capacity to give. And I think to really see my capacity to give as a gift. Because, I learned how to give from my family, and I was really lucky to have such a loving family that showed me how to love. And I think, people love differently. Um, and I'm lucky that I know how to love this way because I've been loved this way, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is in Costa Rica, that would have been a moment. So I want to talk about your voice for a second, because you have a beautiful voice, but I think that that's just seeing it one dimensionally,
Mm.
respectfully, if you don't mind me saying. I think what you don't realize is, and I think this is because of just how you were raised, how you guys went out into the world. And I would say this with Brice too, but we're focusing on you right now, is you have a different kind of voice. You have a voice that people want to listen to. I'm not talking about your songs. I'm talking about period. When you speak, people want to know what you're going to say, what's going to come out of her mouth. And that is because, back to your comment about giving and feeling you're one who will start that conversation, you will share and be vulnerable. That affords and allows people then to open up to you. But because you are the person you are, separate of doing that, people want to know what you're going to say, and want to hear from you. So your voice takes on many different roles beyond the melodious voice that sings beautiful, magical words, that tells your personal stories. You have a voice as a woman. All three of you have voices as women. I mean, the thing about Zerline and I, we're at a different stage in our life. You're the next generation. You're coming up, and you guys have an opportunity to make huge differences in the world with your voice. And both of you are skilled at being seen and heard and acknowledged. And I don't mean that you guys are skilled in a political way. Your natural ways as women are that people take you seriously and want to understand who and what you are and how you're showing up. So that's just an amazing quality. And then to your comment about the ability to be vulnerable and open up, a different form of empathy than, say, Brice, where Brice is one of these people. Brice, you aren't necessarily that person. I think that's a very good distinction, Zaya. Brice doesn't necessarily open up that way. And I'd say that's more like Mama, like Zerline. Mama doesn't open up that way per se, but for whatever reason, you're like a sponge. She knows everybody's everything. And it makes you kind of wonder, people feel comfortable talking to you because, anyway, so let's move right along. I've one more question, and I will go right to Zerline to talk about, and Mama to talk about, how do you use your superpowers to help other women?
I represent a lot of women who are in a transitional period in their life. Yeah, they are maybe separating from their partners, or downsizing because the kids have moved out of the house, and I can empathize with those feelings. And I think I get a lot of calls that are not related to the real estate, but are related to, hey, can we talk about this? I getting to know you, recognize that you can help me. So I think I do spend a lot of time with clients talking about things that are completely unrelated to real estate. I get a lot of calls from women who are, have recently lost a partner and want to talk about, how do you move on? How do you keep going? How do you negotiate the things that happen, the week after, the month after, the year after, 5 years after? What's the marching plan? It makes me feel useful to be able to help people who are trying to navigate those issues.
Wow, that's really, it's interesting. The first part of that was describing that you get more calls as the real estate lawyer on a personal level. It's like you're part psychologist and then real estate lawyer, because real estate lawyer,
I frequently say I wish I'd taken more courses in psychology.
well, I think you have very good, generous listening skills. The other thing I want to say to that, which is interesting, and this is just me connecting the dots, is you doing that helps people get comfortable moving into their new home. So what you do by sheer making yourself available to them on a personal level just sets them up right for their next move. And the move is a metaphor. It's both a literal thing and a figurative thing that's happening in their lives. So for you to give back that way makes a lot of women and people, men, feel very comfortable. And then of course what you do with your friends and with women sharing and opening up and then just being there to listen is just an amazing superpower. The world is very lucky to have you, Zerline.
Thank you.
So Brice, what would you say how would you say you use your superpowers to help other women?
I would say one of the things is that I am truly like always available for all of my friends. Um, Sometimes to a fault, but I'm always there for advice, for, this just happened. You won't believe this just happened. What do I do? For work advice, I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of different career opportunities. So people come to me and they're like, well, how did you navigate this? And Elizabeth, I frequently give the advice that I have received from you, and I try to help people stay focused, and I try to help give the advice that I have been so fortunate to receive. And I think being able to just like be there, to be someone who people can count on and rely on and know that, they're going to call you, they're going to text you, and you'll respond and you'll make time for them. It's just something that I think is like one of the most valuable things you can be for another person. So I try to give back that way, I think. And then I think also just, I do give a lot of advice. I think that's something that similar to what my mom was saying, to if you can be that person, and, having lost my dad, and I think having, navigated a lot of career changes, having, left New York City and moved to the suburbs. I mean, not even suburbs. It's rural here, my neighbors have horses. So I think, those kinds of life changes, I'm so happy to be able to say, like, I've gone through it, I've been through it, I've done it. And here's what I can tell you. And like, here's how I can help maybe, be a guide in some ways.
Yeah, that's great. I think that the way in which I think that you hit on something, the first part of how you use your superpowers to help other women. And I didn't connect it back to earlier, is you're a good teammate. You care. When you're a good teammate, you care about your teammates. That could be your literal teammate as a sports, or it could be just your teammates at a job, your teammates in life. And when you show up for those people and show that you care, often people, and Zaya, you made this comment when you were talking about your superpowers, is understanding that not everybody has the same capacity. People are built very differently. And I have to tell you, Zaya, I've been learning a lot about the capacity bit, like at this juncture in my life, because I've had some disappointment. And then I just go back to, you know what? They just don't have the capacity. They're wired differently. You should feel very good about the capacity you have. It's a gift, but not everybody has the same gift. So that's a wonderful thing, Brice, because it makes women feel seen, heard, and safe. Okay, separate of celebrated, safe. We want to lift each other up. Women, we want women to lift other women up, but we want you to feel safe amongst each other. We're not competing. We're there to celebrate. Zaya, you use the word collaborate. Like, collaborate. How do we help each other be our best selves? So Zaya, how would you say you use your superpowers to support other women and help other women?
Well, I think something that was really important for me to be able to support other women was learning how to be comfortable with myself. I think like when you're not confident, it's hard to be surrounded by other women that are confident and not feel like it's a reflection of yourself. When somebody else is, confident and sure of themselves, it's like, well, why am I not confident and sure of myself? So I think on my year off, that's really what I worked on, to feel like secure in myself. And after I did that, I found it really easy to hype up other women and make them feel good. And I also think that like a part of reaching out and being, for me, like I tried to do this thing like once a day, where if I saw somebody at school on campus and I liked their pants on the street, to be like, I like your pants, just to like chat with people on the street kind of, and like just make new connections and not be afraid to like give somebody a compliment. Cause like, I think at the end of the day, it's like, what do you have to lose, especially in a setting like college, like everybody's just trying to make friends. Everybody is just trying to, be the best version of themselves. So why not try to make somebody else feel better about themselves and like spread that positivity, you know?
That's beautiful. And it's so important. And I think critical to your age, it's really, going off to college is such a big transition time. And when the word transition seems really trite, but it's literally what you're doing. It's like you're leaving home, the metaphor of that safe, that nest, and you're going out and you're getting those wings that mom had mentioned that she could go out and have anything she would want wings, but you're getting wings to sort of spread and see where you go, see how you fly. And I think it's a really tricky time. So I think the fact that you understand that, I just feel like you're light years ahead of so many women at many different stages of their life, because you have such great awareness of self and of who you are and a sense of who you want to and what you want to be. But to be honest with you, Zaya, I don't even think you need to have that. Just like I try and tell Brice, you don't need to have that figured out right now. You just need to be doing all the things you're doing, putting in the work to all the aspects of your life that matter to you. And then good things will happen. So this has been, I don't want to hang up. I feel like it has been a little bit of, group therapy in a way. I mean, just sisterhood. This is a sister circle and I didn't even realize it. You guys are just incredible women, young, old, at every age in between, very special and near and dear to me. Have been so humbled and honored to have this conversation and to be celebrating you during Women's History Month. Because we're making history and you're making history. And, and all I can say is the thing that I think you all three have in common is each of you show up as your best self every day. And I mean, I'm just looking at you. I have so much love. My heart is like, it's so expansive right now. And Zerline's shaking her head. She feels the same way. I mean, this has just been so incredible. I wish my daughters are on the call with us, but thank you so much. Let's go make some history, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being such a champion of women and sisters and for living and breathing the work and really being the best example of that, because you do the work so all of us can. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, I have goosebumps. I'm going to cry, but I can't cry.
Serendipitous introduction. What, 6 years ago?
What?
7 years ago? Maybe you'd like to look at an internship at the block. I mean, look where we got to from there. Amazing.
I know, but I think the greatest thing, because I talk about, I mentor someone who's been in my life, and I continue to mentor, even though we went on different paths. I'm always there for her, because I talk to, now that I'm connecting with women around the world all the time. It's like, how can I help? How can I help? What can I do? And I think that, you guys, you're in your mid-20s. Brice, Zaya, you just turned 21. And by the way, happy birthday. Whoa, go Zaya. But I think what's really, I think what's really important, and I look at Zerline, your mom, my dear friend, and it's like the role modeling. You talked about your superpowers. People want to come to you. You're like the honey, if you will. You're like or you're the bumblebee. You're making the honey. I think the point is that when we create safe spaces for women to come, when we lift each other, Zaya, and be the hype women for other women, that's what makes this world a better place. Like, that's the part that we can do as women. We're not going to be able to make, like, I don't know, like the level of change we're going to be able to do will only be if each of us do our part in it. And I think that that's what I've recognized in starting under the sisterhood. I mean, I've interviewed now, I think 60 women representing 28 different countries. And what I will tell you is every single woman wants to be seen and heard. These are like everyday non-celebrity women who are doing remarkable, extraordinary things with their lives. And I think that one thing we all share in common is, this need to sort of touch, be seen, be heard, and touch each other in our ways. And so this has been an interesting journey for me. Thank you so much for those kind words, Brice. But this is really important work, and I'm just happy. I'm so thrilled to have you guys as part of the Sisterhood, and of course, as part of my hood in general. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Zach Slaff, and edited by Zach Slaff. The music is by Ayla Schaefer, her song, Rose.